So, I'm not from around here.
The stories you're telling, Adam, that you're stuck here until you find this magic sword.
This obsession with nerd stuff and sword things, you're freaking people out, especially Daryl.
God, I hate Daryl. I know it sounds crazy, but that sword is gonna show me the way home. I know most of you don't remember me, but I know all of you.
Everything changed since you left.
It's all gone. Skeletor took my family, and he destroyed our world. It's all my fault.
I know how it feels to fail. And when you fall, that's your chance to stand tall. I have the power! The universe shall quake and I shudder.
This is my home. I'm gonna fight for it. I need every man, woman, or whatever that is.
You may have the power, but you're too scared to use it.
Trust me, I know how to use it.
You tell everyone that you're from another planet. It just makes you sound a little very crazy.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Masters of the Universe just dropped a new trailer at CCXP with some new footage and Easter eggs, so we will break it all down. We also found out about Dolph Lundgren's cameo scene. There have been a lot of questions about who he might play and how they'd reference the classic live-action Masters of the Universe movie, but do not worry, they will definitely reference it. If you haven't seen the original Masters of the Universe live-action movie, be sure to check it out at some point. It is a classic. What I'll do is I'll just start at the beginning of the footage and just jump around because some of the scenes are from the same moment, just broken across the trailer in different parts. We see he's been keeping a box of memories and drawings of his of Eternia since he was a child and he's been put on Earth. Based on the other footage, it looks like the progression of the movie, we will have flashbacks to him as a child on Eternia, learning about everything around Castle Grayskull, the Line of Kings, the Power Sword, the Power of Grayskull, how he is meant to wield the Power Sword eventually. Because there are a couple scenes later in the trailer where he tries to hoist and call the power with the fake sword, implying that he knows that he is meant to be He-Man. So this would mean he'd have to grow up knowing the lore, like he knew the lore before he was sent to Earth.
By the power of Grayskull,
And it looks like in the past, during all these flashbacks, Skeletor attacks, trying to enter Castle Grayskull and take the power for himself and capture Adam and his family. This is what all the scenes of the Rotons flying around Eternia, the big battle, the bridge to Castle Grayskull are from. You can see a bunch of his henchmen too, like Evil Lyn, Goatman, big fire in the background. Skeletor captures his father, King Randor, played by James Purefoy. You see his mother running him into Castle Grayskull and past the sorceress in white, played by Morena Baccarin. You can actually see her a little bit in this shot, but this is a much better look at what her costume looks like in the movie. We will see how close the movie gets to referencing Teela as her daughter, like how much lore they get into with that, because Teela is eventually meant to become the next sorceress at some point. Maybe if they make it to like 3 or even 4 sequels, they'll get to something like that, but I'm assuming they wouldn't jump that fast in like the next big movie. The next big movie would be something like She-Ra. But it seems like she portals him to Earth to protect him from Skeletor, who doesn't know that Earth exists at this point in the timeline. But we do see Beastman on Earth later in the trailer in present day. So it seems like eventually Skeletor tortures somebody and figures out where Earth is and sends his henchmen trying to get Adam there so that he can use him to try and claim the power. And Skeletor has just spent the last 10 or 15 years trying to torture people, trying to figure out how to get the power, and has not been able to because he hasn't had access to Adam and hasn't been able to find someone to call the power down. The whole idea in the lore, the reason why Skeletor needs the sword is because the sword is the key that unlocks the power of Grayskull. So it's not that he wants the sword itself, he wants Adam to use the sword to unlock the power because Adam is the only person that can call the power. So that's why he wants Adam so badly. They got into a little bit of this lore during the Kevin Smith Masters of the Universe. But I think they use Earth for a couple reasons in this movie, there's so much Earth. One, it's also a bit of a fun callback to the classic live-action Masters of the Universe, which spent most of its time on Earth because of budgetary reasons back in the 80s, they just didn't have a lot of money to actually make the movie. But originally, in Masters of the Universe lore, his mother, Queen Marlena, was an astronaut from Earth that just got portaled accidentally to Eternia in her ship and crashed, wound up marrying King Randor, then had Adam and his sister Adora, She-Ra. So far, I have not spotted any real big She-Ra Easter eggs in the actual trailers. I think that they're probably saving her for a post-credit scene, or maybe just a bigger Easter egg in the movie setting up future sequels, and they're just waiting to see if they can do sequels to actually do her as a big character. We get to the end of the movie and the sorceress is oh, by the way, there's also another out there, and they do the whole Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia thing. There is another Skywalker. There is another champion. And speaking of the classic Masters of the Universe movie, the Dolph Lundgren cameo scene, he's reportedly playing a regular human who just also works out in the gym where Adam works at in the course of the movie. He just works at a regular gym, and he says to him, "Good journey," after they meet each other. Which was something that the characters quoted during the classic Masters of the Universe movie all the time.
Good journey.
Good journey.
Good journey.
You notice all the drawings in his Eternia box are meant to be his own drawings in the context of the movie, but they're based on Mark Taylor's original artwork. He's the person who designed all the classic Masters of the Universe toys when it was first created at Mattel. I don't have a really big 4K version of the trailer with real crisp backgrounds. You can't zoom in and enhance too much, but all the artwork papered around his walls are also of actual real-life Mark Taylor concept drawings made back in the day for all this stuff. There's even more Mark Taylor references later in the trailer, too. There's a drawing of Castle Grayskull, the Power Sword, as it sits inside the castle we see later in the trailer. It seems like inside his room there are a bunch more Easter eggs for more Mattel action figures, classic WWE wrestling figures. Seems like he's a big wrestling fan. A Skeletor drawing. And I believe the Bullman might be Minox, who's a creation of Skeletor's. He was a cybernetic minotaur who appeared in the comics who would just drag people to be tortured inside Snake Mountain. We get a better look at his desk at work, but it's still kind of hard to tell exactly what his job is at this company. We get more scenes of him with Susie, his HR rep, too, and some of these Earth-based characters. We find out that Daryl is his arch-nemesis for some reason. Not a good idea to make enemies of He-Man. All the action figures when he goes to the toy store are meant to be classic Mattel action figures or connected to or preceded the original Masters of the Universe toy line in the 80s. They're all larger He-Man Easter eggs in one way or another. Probably the biggest, metaphorically and literally, is Torak. We get a bunch more scenes of the Torak figure in the middle here too, this big standee, and they do confirm that it is meant to be Torak. He was actually meant to be the protagonist for a toy line that Mark Taylor created before he created He-Man, based on the Conan the Barbarian line after Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan the Barbarian started to blow up. Originally, I believe Mattel wanted to do an actual Conan line of toys, but they couldn't get the rights, so they had to change it. And initially here, the Torak figure was just way too close to Conan, and they didn't want to get sued, so Mark Taylor then changed it into what became He-Man. But a while later, Mark Taylor reworked the more Conan-like Torak design into a character called Vicor and retconned him into the continuity. Vicor was meant to be the second protector of the power of Grayskull after King Grayskull passed away. He didn't wield the power sword the way that King Grayskull did. He was only its protector until the true hero was meant to come along, who was supposed to be Adam. He was featured with a number of other deep-cut lore characters like Wundar and ancient characters during Kevin Smith's Masters of the Universe series on Preternia.
Vicor! Kuda! Meet Tila! Tila, these are my friends!
Well met, Tila.
The other real big Easter egg here we can see is Big Jim, to make as many puns as possible. Big Jim was a failed toy line that Mattel had in the late 70s, right before Masters of the Universe. So when it came time to do Masters of the Universe, there was a big cat that they made for the Big Jim line that they reworked into Cringer and Battle Cat. We can actually see he rips the hand off the Torak standee, trying to call the power down with the toy sword. And the reason why it looks just like his power sword is because Mark Taylor drew it like this when he created the Torak character. You also see there are a bunch of Torak posters and logos around here too, and the logo is drawn in Mark Taylor's original style too. You notice one of the posters says sword power on it as a reference to the power sword. There's another Torak poster with his helmet on, and the inscription reads the Wakiaks, which was presumably going to be the land that Torak came from before they created the concept of Eternia and tried to change it enough so that they wouldn't get sued for the Conan IP. So they're kind of making it seem like in the movie, Torak didn't have any licensing copyright issues, and like a version of Mark Taylor existed on this earth, just created his version of Torak, and then Mattel ran with it and created this toy line, and it blew up instead of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. There'll probably be some more Easter eggs explaining how that works in the background too, like did Mark Taylor exist on this earth? Did he meet somebody from Eternia? Did Mark Taylor actually get to visit Eternia and then created a toy line based on it for some reason? Sometimes movies just hand-wave past a lot of that kind of stuff. Absolutely love that they put Cringer inside the MGM logo. The funny thing about this is it was actually fans that did that after the original trailer release, and they didn't have the traditional line inside the logo. So fans were like, why don't you just put Cringer inside the logo? So they literally just did that for the next trailers. So it's just a really good example of a studio listening to fans like, oh, we'll just do what the fans want. Then there's a lot of footage that they're repeating from previous trailers, so I'm not going to go through every single bit of the repeated footage, otherwise this would turn into like a 2-hour-long video, even though I would love to make a 2-hour-long video on Masters of the Universe. That'd be great. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references to the lore or the original toy line that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. Because we're in the middle of CCXP, there's been a couple other big trailers that have been rumored or might be dropping in the next day or two. There are so many people that believe that the Avengers Doomsday trailer is going to release, but nobody has any actual evidence of that. So whatever does wind up releasing, I will try to do videos for, but just expect a couple of big surprises in the next couple days. Make sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of those videos. Everybody click here and here for all those other big trailers that are posting this weekend. I'll try to get through all those videos as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.